This is Vigneto, a podcast.
From the sun and soil they grow, from the land and sea they roam, drinking wine in the great unknown.
Hi, it's Susanna Gold at the Vigneto Podcast. I'm focused on sustainability, and for the upcoming 5 weeks, I'm going to be speaking with corporate leaders and talking about their views of sustainability. I'm here with Maureen Kline, who is the Vice President for Public Affairs and Sustainability for North America for Pirelli. Hi, Maureen. It's really nice to see you. It's been a long time, and I'm really happy to see you. So I know Pirelli very well, but I don't know a lot about what sustainability means in Pirelli. I know that's a big question, but maybe you can just start, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Absolutely. So Pirelli, which is headquartered in Italy, is very focused on sustainability, and it is very broad definition. So it's not just environmental by any means. And you could say that it goes across environmental, social, and governance areas overall. But it's really the point is that it's very integrated into the corporate strategy. And it's very top down. So the company is really trying to be, a sustainable tire company looking to the future. And in fact, the company was founded in 1872. So if you define sustainability as, duration over time, they're
doing pretty well. Yeah,
they're doing pretty well.
Yeah,
And I think you could say that a lot of the way that we look at sustainability is shifting from a shareholder model to a stakeholder model of capitalism. So we try to create value for all stakeholders, and we include the environment itself as a stakeholder. So,
I love that definition, actually. Can you repeat that for me? So you look at it from the stakeholder point of view, not the shareholder point of view.
Exactly. So shareholders are an important stakeholder, but we're also trying to create value for employees, customers, communities, and the environment, and suppliers. So the whole value chain, the whole system that we live in. And of course it's a journey, but if we believe for a minute that everybody is serious about the Paris Agreement, the conclusion to that is that we have to transform the entire economy. And so Pirelli has basically been kind of looking for its place within that transformation. And so obviously the automotive transition, which is huge. So it's electric, connected, shared, and self-driving cars and so on. And so we look at, well, what is Pirelli's, how can we help decarbonize the transportation system?
Right.
And then we've announced goals like carbon neutral by 2030, which is a very aggressive goal. The most aggressive in the tire industry. Yeah. And cutting CO2 emissions by 25% by 2025 over 2015, things like that. 100% renewable energy by 2025 as well, which actually we're going to achieve that by purchasing renewable energy, whether it's on-site or somewhere else.
That's really very interesting. So when you came on board Pirelli, did they already have a sustainability practice? Did you go directly into sustainability? Because you've been at Pirelli for a long time now. It's been some years, right?
Yeah, so I joined in 2006, and there was a sustainability program, and I can't remember what year Pirelli started publishing sustainability reports annually. And then now we have an integrated sustainability and financial annual report. But sustainability was already there. And I joined in the communications department, but then I switched over to public affairs. And public affairs, of course, includes representing the company in all kinds of international settings. And we were doing a lot with the UN Global Compact, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And then when the company moved me to New York in 2012 to to do public affairs for the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, I was also asked to be responsible for implementing the sustainability strategy here in North America. And we have someone. So we have the sustainability department in the headquarters, and trying to integrate sustainability in all departments. So we have like sustainability people in the procurement and other departments. But then we also have a head of sustainability in each region around the world. And so that's me for North America. So I really got heavily involved in it around 2012 when I came to New York.
It's really interesting to me because sometimes when I talk about sustainability, a lot of people include the whole employee social responsibility piece, but some people do not. But do you think that's a corporate definition? So do you find that most corporations in your industry, let's say, view the employee piece of sustainability as part of it, or do you find that that's something specific to Pirelli?
No, I think the larger multinationals are really aligning around what's called the GRI reporting principles, and other similar definitions. And so the social part of ESG ranges from human rights in the supply chain to employee wellness and training and productivity and things like that. We talk about internal and external stakeholders. So the internal stakeholders would be the employees, the external would be the community and the supply chain, and so on.
And the environment.
But I do think that social part is becoming more and more important, and the larger multinationals are really adopting that kind of definition.
I'm glad to hear that. And for a while, I thought it was kind of a European, North American thing. Like it seemed to me a lot of European companies included the employee social responsibility part of it, and that many European companies were measuring themselves against the SDGs, against the Sustainable Development Goals. But I'm glad to hear that you see it kind of as a multinational. So moving into your specific industry, so rubber and tire, what does sustainability look like in that industry? Because I know a little bit about the rubber and tire sector, but not so much.
Okay, so I think I would divide it into three sort of big areas. Okay. One is, we talked about a little bit, which is decarbonizing transportation. So electric vehicles, and then fuel efficiency of the tires themselves, the materials that go into the tires. And so that overall, decarbonization. And then the second area I would say is circular economy, which I'm sure your listeners are very familiar with. So the idea of reusing, recycling, designing a product with less resources and to last longer, that kind of thing. And we can talk about that a little bit, because there's a lot going on in the end of life tire. And then the third area is responsible sourcing. So, for example, our factory in the United States just recently became the first tire factory in the world to be certified by the Forest Stewardship Council for sustainably sourced natural rubber. And that means that there was a big audit process that started on the ground in Thailand, where the rubber trees are, and followed the chain of custody all the way through to the factory here in the U.S. And that certification covers zero deforestation and human rights of the people on the ground, fair treatment and so on. So I'm seeing certainly in the rubber and tire industry, that being very, very important, the traceability of the supply chain, and being able to certify that no deforestation is happening in order to plant more rubber trees to satisfy the demand. And when if you take a product like an automobile and you trace each part of it, you end up with different minerals that come from mines that could be certified also for human rights.
Mm-hmm.
And agricultural products like rubber and leather,
Mm-hmm.
and those can be certified for example, for zero deforestation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the plastics. But basically, I think the future, one of the things that's going to be very important in the future is tracing every part of, a mobile phone, every part of an automobile, all the way to the source, and making sure that human rights are being respected and environmental impacts are minimized.
That is a great goal. Do you think it's possible? Are you optimistic about something like that happening in the next 20 years? Or do you think that's kind of the way it necessarily will go? I mean, is there a lot of kind of political will? I would think it also need political will to get something like that done.
Yeah. And you actually hit on an important difference before when you said, Europe. You talked about Europe. I would say that Europe is ahead in sustainability.
I agree.
It leads the world, and
yes, it does. Absolutely.
And so, and that's actually been interesting because I've been able here in the U.S. to kind of bring forward these European approaches and introduce them into larger settings in the tire industry and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But I am optimistic because I think there's the political will in Europe. And then once Europe kind of cracks this nut, others will follow. So in Europe, they're talking about mandatory due diligence in the supply chain, which is exactly what I'm talking about. And if it's mandatory, then it will happen. And and others will, the United States will probably align with that eventually. And certainly if you're a multinational company and you operate in Europe, there are a lot of things that you have to comply with, and then it becomes natural to trace your supply chain anyway.
That's really, I'm happy to hear that you're optimistic, and I hope that you're right. It's very interesting because when I started this podcast and I used the word sustainability with people who it seemed to me that of course it included certain things, and I found that the way I was using sustainability is a way that I had heard it used in Italy rather than the way people were using it here in America. So that's why I'm kind of just aware of the different ways that it's looked at in different industries and in different parts of the world at the moment. But looking at, the global scheme of things, I know that Pirelli measures itself against some of the SDGs. Are there any particular SDGs that a tire company looks at? So the UN Sustainability Development Goals, are there any ones? Are they all important for a tire company? Is there kind of some that are looked at more than others?
Well, we are measuring, we are trying to sort of organize our thinking around the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think that's a good way for, especially for some of those collaborative efforts to take off. So for example, I'll just give you two examples of collaborative efforts. There's something called the Tire Industry Project, which is the majority of tire companies and tire revenue globally, and that's a project within the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. But it's basically a scientific body where the tire companies collaboratively do research into impacts of tires on environment and human health, and really work collaboratively. And so some of the goals are, goals that are so ambitious that we really need the whole industry to come together, or multiple industries. And so the World Business Council for Sustainable Development has been a good forum to bring those collaborations together. And then another one is we launched a global platform for sustainable natural rubber, which is in Singapore. And it's not only the tire industry that launched it, but some of the car companies and some of the rubber intermediaries and so on, some of the rubber processors. And so that's a way of working together. But so that speaks to, I would say, goal 15, life on land, and also goal 17 of on partnerships for sustainable development. And then we also we definitely look a lot at sustainable cities and communities, and we look at sort of the future of sustainable cities, sustainable transportation. What is the future of, for example, is the business model going to change? Are we going to be selling tires by the miles rather than by the unit? And are they going to be sold to sort of fleets of shared vehicles? And we also have something called the cyber tire, which is a tire with a sensor that communicates with the vehicle electronics and helps with safety, but also fuel efficiency, because you can monitor, if your tires need to be inflated or changed or things like that.
That sounds very space age to me. Cyber tire. I kind of like that. Sounds like a superhero. Cyber tire. Could have a little superhero. That's so interesting. Yeah, there's so many different facets to your job. You probably would have so many things to focus on. I had one question, if we could go back to something you mentioned about end of life tire, because that's interesting to me. What happens at the end, the end of the life of a tire? Where does the tire end up? What's kind of the end of the cycle, Yeah,
and actually, in the past, tires were sort of the poster child for, waste with, like dumped in riverbeds with mosquitoes and so on. So end of life tires have come a long way. In Europe and in Canada, there is extended producer responsibility. So the manufacturers are the ones that take care of collection of end-of-life tires and then what to do with them next. In the US, it's very similar, except that those programs are run by the states, and which is good because the states have the power of enforcement. And also the other thing that's good about what's happening in the US is that there's been a real push for market development. So if we could have markets that wanted to buy scrap tire crumb rubber as a raw material for something else, and we're willing to pay good money for it, then we would have a real circular economy happening. And so that's, as an industry, that's what we're aiming for. And we have a lot of research projects and conferences, and I'm on the board of a foundation for scrap tires in the United States through the Tire Industry Association. And
what is it called?
It's called STREF, Scrap Tire Research and Education Foundation, I think. But it's related to the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association. And in the past, it's mostly held conferences, but we're kind of refining our 5-year plan on end-of-life tires in terms of, creating these new markets. And one of them, for example, is rubber modified asphalt, because roads perform better if they're made with crumb rubber from scrap tires in them, and they last longer, and they have all these great attributes. But we're also at the same time trying to fund research into environmental and human health impacts, and make sure that anything that we propose as a market for end-of-life tires is totally safe, which of course you can never know for sure. And so there's a lot of research going on, both in terms of chemicals that go into the tires, and are there substitutes that are organic and non-toxic and things like that. And then it's basically just continuous research on kind of all fronts. But end-of-life tires, I think the real question is, when are we going to see end-of-life material that can be reused for new tires, to make new tires? And right now you can use some of that material, recycled material, in tires that are not important for performance, like on a racetrack or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
Because you just need really high quality material for performance and safety. But you can use that recycled material in things like off the road tractor tires and things like
Right.
that.
Probably good for someone like me who drives about 20 miles an hour. I'm the last person who needs racing tires, although I certainly appreciate their beauty. Thank you so much. I could go on and on about the tire industry with you. It's a fascinating company, and it's really interesting to talk about all the different things that you guys are doing. So I just want to say thank you for spending some time with me. Is there anything that I missed that we didn't touch upon that you think would be interesting to talk about?
No, I think it's good that you brought us back to end of life tires. Right now, there's a lot of concern for the environmental impacts of tire particles coming off the roads, and
Right.
It's something that we're working on a lot because all of these things are so interrelated, and so and I think just to close, I think I would say that the most important thing that sustainability has brought us is to not be working in silos, and that all of these things are so integrated and so connected. So thank you for inviting me to talk about tires.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's actually an incredibly fascinating topic and a really fascinating company. And it's so nice to see you. It's been a long time, and I really appreciate spending this time with you. So thank you very much. And, here's hoping that you guys find something to do with end of life tires, and that we all learn more about the tire industry. Maybe I'll have you back in some years and we'll find out where you guys are doing next. Certainly sounds like a company that's in constant evolution. So I'm sure new things will be coming down the pike soon. So thank you so much. Well, I really enjoyed that chat with Maureen Kline on the tire company Pirelli.com. The website is Pirelli.com. The company is Pirelli. And I'm looking forward to my conversation next week with Luca Formentini from Selva Capuzza, which is a group located near Lake Garda in Italy. It's a group because they have many vineyards, they have a fantastic restaurant, and they also have an agriturismo, among other businesses perhaps that Luca will talk to us about. So I'm really looking forward to that. You get that podcast and this one usually on Fridays, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening.
This is Vigneto, a podcast.
From the sun and soil they grow, from the land